Well, what's up, guys? We're back. Welcome to another episode of The Collision Live. It's me, your host, Daniel, and joined at the desk, as I always am, by the sweaty nerd to my Comic-Con convention floor, Mr. Samuel David Camp. What is up?
Oh, not too much, other than this is not where we came live from last time.
Yeah, so we've been off, taking the last couple of weeks off because we've been working the long-awaited, we've been announcing it and talking about it, geeking out about it. Our new studio. We're excited to. We are literally still putting stuff up on the walls like 2 minutes before we went live today. So it's still a bit of a work in progress. So if everything goes crazy and it's a big disaster,
we'll blame it on the new studio.
Yeah, blame it on the new studio. It's nothing to do with us. But we're excited to finally be back or be in our brand new recording studio. And got a lot of plans. The Collision's been growing. A lot of cool stuff happening with us. And we're excited. This is sort of the next step. So stay tuned. A lot of cool videos and stuff coming up in the near future. But what's up? Anything been out for a couple weeks?
Yeah, I've as you might guess, I've sort of unplugged from a lot of pop culture stuff because I was like, well, I don't have to. We're not doing a live stream for a couple of weeks, so I'll just ignore most of it. But yeah, other than that, yeah, just enjoying the heat of the summer down here in Georgia.
Yeah, which the summer, this is actually starting, I think, tomorrow. My wife's teacher, she's going back to school, kind of the end of the summer break.
Which is kind of hard to imagine.
Which is crazy. Kids are sad. Parents like me, we're not sad. We're just bring back some routine. But I want to thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't joined us before, if this is your first time, or if you are joining us again, this is our weekly live stream show podcast where we just sort of look at what's going on in pop culture, the trends, the stories, the things that kind of everyone's talking about, and just try and approach it from a biblical Christian worldview. Kind of what does Scripture say about this? What sort of, as a Christian, how can we navigate it, be aware of it, engage with it, contribute to it? So we invite you guys, join the discussion if you're watching us live, or even if you're watching us at a later time. Throw some comments in the comment section. We'd love to have a conversation with you about that. But one of the speaking of cultural conversations, changing things up from what we used to do here, our first segment of our show, we have cultural conversations. So cultural conversation. This is the first time we're kind of doing this. We used to do pop culture news, but really one of the big things for us here at the Collision has always been the conversations. What are people talking about? What's dialogue about culture and stuff? Not as much just like the newsy stories, although we'll probably geek out about some of those newsy stuff as well. But just sort of what are the conversations happening in culture, kind of based on the arts and what's kind of going on, and in social media and all that kind of stuff, in the movies, entertainment industry, and kind of what are some of these conversations? And let's sort of talk about that. Engage with that. So there are a couple things this week. Actually, we have a bit of a backlog because we had a couple weeks off. Things to kind of talk about that I thought were interesting. So invite you guys join the conversation as we kind of get into this. But the first one, maybe not as hard hitting of a cultural conversation, but Barney the Dinosaur. If you're my age or younger, you know who this guy is. He was a staple in your home. Well, apparently kids are going to be getting their own dose of Barney the Dinosaur, but not the one that they remember. So let's see if I can say this name right. Daniel Kaluuya, who's just killing it. He's like an Oscar-winning actor. He's just starring in Nope, which is in theaters right now, the Jordan Peele movie. He kind of on his press tour has been talking about kind of bringing back Barney the Dinosaur, the one we all love, but with a bit of a twist. So this will be a darker take on the TV show. And here's the quote that stood out to me, kind of selling this new Barney show. It says, "Barney taught us, I love you, you love me. Won't you say you love me too? That's one of the first songs I remember. What happens when that isn't true?" So Sam, let me just throw this over to you. Are you kind of getting amped up for a darker a dinosaur that maybe doesn't love you back?
Well, what I was thinking, like in the times that we're living in now, there's the war in Ukraine, still fallout from the pandemic, inflation, everything else that's going on. I thought, wouldn't it be nice if that lovable purple dinosaur was a bit more dystopian? Because I think that's what we all need is a Barney that's maybe more cynical, a bit more jaded, has lived a little life, and I think that's the thing that will really inspire the next generation to love each other and to do the right thing.
Yeah, this Barney, his love is not unconditional. You need to earn his love. You need to get to know him. But I do think obviously it's kind of, I don't know anyone that I guess like an Oscar-winning actor is like sitting at home and like, you know what, what if I like made a darker Barney that didn't love you back? Like, I don't know what leads to this like train of.
Well, I think there's a bunch of is it Winnie the Pooh that has recently entered the public domain?
Oh, and there's like a.
And so there's like a horror genre of Winnie the Pooh now, and so it could just be like, I don't know, I don't think Barney's in the public domain yet, but it's just like, hey, why not like take the things that you loved from your childhood and like put a cynical twist on it because you can.
And I do think, again, I think it's just sort of a silly story, but I do think that in some ways like it is reflecting this like trend of like children's entertainment now. Like I feel like back at the OG Barney that was just loving everyone and cleaning up toys and stuff. Like it was just sort of this like escape and this very friendly.
Yeah.
Where now like like Pixar and some of these other like cartoons or animated films like way more. Like, it's like we're dealing with like mature theme. Like, and I don't mean that always in a bad way, but just like
right.
I feel like the entertainment has become a little less of like, hey, this is just a fun place to entertain a kid, and you're gonna sort of escape, and it's a little more like we're here to kind of help you work through these like issues and stuff. And I don't know, that to me is a sort of like a Pandora's box.
Right. I mean, that's sort of a troubling trend, and I wonder. I'm assuming these sort of things go in cycles where it's like, for a while maybe movies are more of an escapism, and then people get tired of all the rosy outlooks in the movies and the shows, and then it just becomes more like reflective of like current circumstances, which there's always been some of that, but I do feel like even with like all of the like mature shows and stuff that are coming out like on Netflix and Amazon, it has a bit of a cynical or a dark or like a depressing sort of twist, at least all the ones that seem to get most of the hype. And so I just wonder, at what point do we say, yeah, I think we've had enough of that, like we want to go back to something that's a little more of like entertainment, and like, yes, I know this isn't reality, but like I don't want it to be reality.
We have enough reality. So I don't know. Let us know what you guys think of Barney. Do we should entertainment like that work through more serious issues, or is this a dinosaur that can kind of teach us to love each other? We'll see. Chuck in the comments asked what we think of the second Avatar movie. I'm excited for it. I think the trailer looks great. I think it's become like cool to like not like Avatar because it was like so big, and like like everyone loved it when it came out, and now it's like, well, now it's big. And more indie movies, or I don't know what it is, but I think the trailer looks cool, so I'm definitely excited for that, the world building of it.
Yeah, we'll see when it comes out.
So we'll see. Another kind of story which maybe opens up more kind of ethical stuff, or more kind of like. The story is almost more what it represents rather than like the actual specific thing. But Stranger Things, the last season just dropped. I really liked season 4. I've been enjoying that show. But one of the things that the show just got back in the news, actually for season 1, kind of going back to the early days of this sort of hit show, where I don't know how this kind of came out. I think someone's just like going back. I don't know if someone maybe just knows the show so much they can pick out stuff. But some viewer discovered that they had actually edited a scene from season 1. I think it's like episode 2 of the show or something. Maybe where one of the characters, if you haven't seen it, he's kind of like an outsider kind of guy, and he's kind of creeping on a girl, and he's a photographer, and kind of sees her through the window, and she's like changing like from behind, and he like takes a picture of her, and like then he kind of moves on or whatever. Well, now when you go to the show, you don't get that. Like you don't get him taking the picture. He's a little more noble and kind of averts his eyes. And again, people are kind of freaking out about they're touching my show. Like that scene is probably a good change. Like whatever, we don't need that scene. But I think the more important discussion, I guess, for me is just like that's starting down a path of like, hey, now it's sort of in this like digital only kind of ecosystem of like, the only way to get this entertainment and stuff is like just on like streaming and stuff. And like now there's the ability without any kind of announcements to like go back and start tweaking things and changing things. Like this scene doesn't change anything. Maybe it's a good change that we are fine with, but like it opens up the door to like, almost like revisionist history of like trying to update all these old stuff, and there's no other way to kind of access them. Like, what do you?
Yeah, no, I think we maybe saw this first was when they took Donald Trump out of Home Alone on the Disney streaming platform. Obviously, those VHS tapes and DVDs are still floating around out there. But no, this isn't the first time this has happened, and I doubt it'll be the last time. But it is, I think, a very like a much darker sort of take on a lot of entertainment, because where does that stop, and to what end are we going back and editing, works of art that have already sort of been completed, whether it's just for the story or if it's just because, like, hey, we don't, agree with this actor who turns out he was a terrible person. Are we just going to pull his catalog of films, or are we going to edit him out of all the movies he's been in now? And then, like, I just think it's a terrible precedent to set. And you see, news organizations do this all the time as well. Like, they'll go back and revise their online versions of stories, like, quite grotesquely. Like, they'll say something that's just completely false, get called out on it, and then just quietly, like, oh, we never said that. Like, what do you mean?
Because like the thing that came to mind to me for this is like Beauty and the Beast, where like I forget you have Gaston, and you have his like little side character, I forget what his name what his name is, but like like he's a kind of a flamboyant character. And then like, in the live action movie, they made his character like overtly gay, but not really overtly gay, but they promoted him as being like he's gay, and I think you just have like one little kind of blink and you miss it scene to kind of do that. But like something like this, in theory, like opens up the door to like, hey, there's people in Disney being like, hey, there's not enough representation and stuff like in the classics. Like, why don't we go back and like just change an animation, or like, and maybe that's like overboard, but like things like that where you sort of like, hey, what was unacceptable or was acceptable then and is unacceptable now. Like, why don't we just go back and start like kind of changing some of these, or like, like changing Star Wars, or change some of these things to update it. And I don't know. I think there could be problems with that. I think that could, in theory, like shows that are like for children that are just fine and wholesome, and all of a sudden, without you knowing it, like your kid's watching it, and there's new stuff in there that's. Like, I don't know if that's just like kind of like tinfoil hat of me to like think that, but I don't know. Let us know. I think there is dangers in that, and like I don't know if we've gone far enough down that to like see some of that.
I think this is going to become. I think it's going to be a much bigger issue, if studios continue to kind of tinker with their past projects, because I guess legally they can. I mean, it's their property, so they can kind of tweak it however they want to. But I think if they keep doing stuff like that, I think it's going to become a much bigger issue that you'll hear a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, and speaking of things that is an issue apparently, and lots of people are talking about, Quidditch and J.K. Rowling. She's always in the news. She's always a conversation. We'd probably just do a J.K. Rowling segment on this live stream because people are always mad about her for something. But one of the things that just in the last week or so, again, if you're not familiar, if you're not like a Potterhead, you're not familiar with the books, one of the elements in the story is called Quidditch. It's sort of like the wizard like football or whatever. Like they're on brooms and there's balls and there's the rule is making zero sense, nonsensical game that just drives me crazy. But it is what it is. It's kind of fun to watch. So obviously, this story has exploded. Everyone loves Harry Potter. So Quidditch became an actual sport. Obviously, the lack of flying broomsticks complicated things a little bit.
Yeah.
So people are running around on like sticks, just brooms. And again, I don't know exactly how all the rules of this game in real life works, but trying to kind of mimic this. And again, this is spread to like, I think I saw like 60 different schools and like 40 different countries. Like there's,
these are schools, like these are like universities.
Yeah, these are like this isn't just like, some like, middle school over, in the backwoods. Like these are like big schools and stuff that have like their, you're going to Quidditch tryouts today. Like
naturally.
Which again, I love Harry Potter. I would probably try out for Quidditch if I could and be a seeker. But again, because because J.K. Rowling has become more controversial, Quidditch will no longer be called Quidditch. It will now be called Quadball. And again, the kind of the reasoning behind this, the International Quidditch Association and Major League Quidditch, which are real things, said that because of J.K. Rowling under scrutiny of her anti-trans positions and the desire to kind of grow the sport, they're going to be trying to distance themselves from J.K. Rowling. And I'm assuming you think that this is as dumb as I think it is, but I don't know. Is there anything to this? Like,
okay, well, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is I didn't know there was such a thing as the International Quidditch Association or Major League Quidditch until now. So that's news. Secondly, I guess they don't want to distance themselves enough to play a different sport, because it's like you're still playing Quidditch, you call it a different name, and like you're still riding around or running around on broomsticks, so it's Quidditch at a much lower altitude. But it just seems, and then I think to call J.K. Rowling anti-trans is a stretch, to be generous, and so it's just sort of a ridiculous. On every level, I think it's just the most ridiculous.
And at least to me, like, it makes it seem so silly, because like, again, like my house is like starting to resemble like an armory for like Lord of the Rings. Like I am not throwing any stones to people that get into their pop culture stuff. Like I have a whole like shrine for Tolkien right in like the opening of my house. So again, if you want to go play Quidditch, I think that's cool. But like it looks silly. Like it has sort of that like charm because it's based on this like shared love of pop culture. But like when you take that away, and like
when you take away the magic,
like 20 something people just like running around on like brooms now for no reason, because it's not like
this isn't about Harry Potter. Like, this is about Quadball.
But it is. I think we've talked about again. I think even we've had articles on it, like kind of separating the artist and the art art, and like just this inability for, I think, our culture to do that. And I think Christians are just as guilty of that as sort of the secular culture. But just the fact that like, well, this thing is fine, but like the person that came up with it, unrelated to that, like years later said a comment I don't like.
Yeah.
So now we need to like restructure, and we can't have anything to do with this thing. And like just this idea that you can't at all be like engaged in stuff unless you like align perfectly with every value.
Yeah. Well, it's a battle of orthodoxy, and I feel like you're seeing a lot of orthodox people sort of polluting the airways with their orthodoxy. And it's just sort of like, well, if you're going to be this, then you have to adhere to these things. And it's just sort of a complete miss of, I think, that everything that's good about art and the world.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think this is, maybe you guys can let us know what you guys think. I think it's silly. I can't imagine that this sport, that Quadball, that people will care when it's not, like, when you strip away, like, the Harry Potter elements of it.
Yeah,
like the sport itself just looks kind of silly, and it's like, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. All the best to Quadball. I enjoyed it when it was still called Quidditch. But the last kind of cultural conversation that we'll move into like our main topic and stuff in the show is that we had Comic-Con. Well, we didn't have Comic-Con. Our culture had Comic-Con this last week. Kind of, all the geeks and the nerds and the people that just love comics and all those sort of things, superheroes. And again, I think it's even broadened beyond just like comics now. It's sort of become this like pop culture thing. You dress up in cosplay, you buy a bunch of expensive Funko Pops, all that fun stuff. I've never been to a Comic-Con.
No, I haven't either. Yeah. I've been to the Dragon Con parade in Atlanta, and that was awesome. I did not participate in the parade, but I was like on the sidelines, and it was just really cool. Because
at least to me, like Comic-Con and all these conventions is like this tension between, it's like geek heaven, but like introvert so hell. And it's like the introvert in me is like, I can't handle it, even though I would love to be there.
Just saying convention center just kind of, sends shivers down my spine.
I don't know if they have like a digital version, VR Comic-Con. Maybe that's more up my alley. But this thing just happened. A couple things. We don't need to get all into the details of Comic-Con and what was announced. Again, there's tons of comic book stuff and superhero movies. But there were a couple things that I did think we should at least a couple seconds sort of talking about. And if you guys know me at all, you know exactly the first thing that I'm interested in. Rings of Power, the second kind of full length. They kind of went like months without releasing anything for this show. But then now it's like every couple of days, it's like here's a trailer, here's a teaser, here's
these trailers have been phenomenal.
And they have been so good. I'll admit, I'm surprised. There's like online, at least like in my Tolkien-y circles, nerdy circles, like it seems like they're people are like very mixed on it, and like almost like this. I know it's gonna be bad, but I'm just maybe hoping it's good. Like, this is very.
Is that because like people who are that into something just have to like hate it for a little while at least, or pretend like the creators didn't really know what they were doing? Is that just sort of like an ego of like fans who are just like, well, I mean, okay, sure, it looks cool, but is it going to be any good?
And I think some of it too is like because it's not like even like the Lord of the Rings movies were very much adapted and different from the books. Yeah. But like they were based on the books, where this is like it's based in like a time period that isn't very filled. Like So basically, it's like $1 billion fan fiction. Like it's
Yeah.
people making up stuff, and I think the real like purist in Tolkien, like, how dare you mess with this? Isn't this isn't Tolkien's material. You're just sort of using his material, and I don't know. I get all that. I can get kind of snobby about that sort of stuff too, but I think these trailers look awesome.
But it looks
I think
pretty
they
good.
look kind of like that optimistic kind of the vibe. Like I always tell people, like Tolkien's like a vibe. Like it's not just a story; it's a whole feeling you kind of get. And like
Yeah.
for me, this trailer totally does it. The orcs, the effects look awesome, so I'm super excited for this. And maybe the last trailer kind of thing that stood out that I thought looked awesome. I made Sam watch it just before we went air. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, that looks really good.
I think this trailer looks more interesting than like the last 3 or 4 entire MCU movies.
Yeah.
It looks fresh. The guy directing this is a beast. He can do no wrong. It is interesting, like kind of showing like when your lead actor passes away. How do they address that in the film? And they're very much addressing it. Like I don't know, were you ever? I don't know if you were invested enough to like whether they should just like recast him with a new actor or just address it. Like I know people are fighting about that. I'm not invested enough to.
No, I mean I don't know that I like for any movie really. It's I don't know. I think you can go either way because obviously like for Potter fans, like Dumbledore was recast when that actor died, and I think it was fine. Like I certain things I think you have to, but like I think in a case like this, I think it probably makes sense to like just address it and then like maybe not necessarily recast it, even though I'm assuming there's like lots and lots of stories of the Black Panther that could be told. Or maybe they're going to like bring another Black Panther, like, after a couple of movies.
Yeah. And even they kind of hint like in the trailer, like at the end, you can sort of see like,
Yeah.
Who's the next Black Panther going to be? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some of that's icky kind of using like the passing of a real person to kind of play up the thing. But I don't know. I think the trailer looks cool. I think it looks emotional. It looks different. And I was totally on board with them, like not recasting and just moving on, address it. I think there's even something powerful about the fact that superheroes don't all live forever. They don't all just like die in battle. I don't know how they're going to address it. But that's definitely those 2 trailers were the ones that stood out the most for me. But moving on to our next segment of our show, definitely something that I'm interested in. I know you will be interested in. We have Host Corner.
Well, sticking with my theme of the my little bumper video there is that's me in space making a coffee, in case you didn't know. One of my many dreams. One day we'll get there. But we're going to talk about you've probably all seen this. It was a couple weeks ago, but hey, we didn't have a live stream, so I'm going to talk about it now. That is the first, I think, 5 images that came out of the James Webb Space Telescope, which is the largest space telescope ever made, and it's amazing. And I've talked about it on here before, but we can just kind of go through. I think I uploaded 3 images. And these images are amazing. So they were first taken in infrared, and so they don't look like this when they come out of the telescope, but they have to sort of do some editing magic to kind of make it look more interesting. But so far, I think that first image was like the furthest that any image has been taken of our universe. So it's like, in a way, it's sort of time travel because it's like it's looking back as far as we can. It's like 13 billion years, I guess, or however many light years away that is. Anyways, they're amazing. We're looking forward to a lot of more awesome space imagery from the James Webb Space Telescope. And that's all for now.
So I was not at all surprised. I could have.
You could have guessed
if
this.
I put my Vegas money on what would be.
Also, I've got my, rubbing my little astronaut that says I need more space.
So here's maybe a question for you. Space for Dummies. Like when these pictures, like all the color and stuff.
That's
like,
all added in.
So like
yeah.
So
so that's
any
not
color?
actually what it's seeing.
So they're lying. So it's not actually as cool as that they're trying to tell us.
It is as cool, but it's all in infrared, so you wouldn't be able to, like with the naked eye, you couldn't see that. So it's a representation of the different like levels of light that are coming through that are beyond the optical
So space
spectrum.
isn't just like purple and like green and stuff.
No, not necessarily. I mean, there are colors to it, but not. It wouldn't be quite like that. No.
Well, now my dreams of space and stuff, my idealistic visions have been shattered. Space is just black and cold and lifeless, like you always thought it was.
And no one can hear you scream.
No one can hear you scream. There's probably aliens out there waiting to kill you. So, yeah, become an astronaut, kids. But we can move into kind of our main topic. Yeah, what about? I've been sick for like a week, so if my throat's going out, I should have been sick for a week. But we'll power through. But the kind of in a lot of ways based on Comic-Con, which just dropped. One of the things I've been kind of thinking about, just as far as like as Christians, and is there anything to it? Like, does it matter? Is just the whole idea of like fandom. I know like Comic-Con's obviously like the mountaintop version of that. Like it's like the peak, but in so many ways that like I just feel like fandom is so dominant in like pop culture. Like it's not, like there are just like the casual, like there's sort of, I'm not really into that sort of stories and stuff. I guess into sports, which again is another kind of fandom. But it is like so much of it seems like it's not just like I like this. I kind of like this. It's like you are like in that, like you're in that tribe of like Marvel. And like I think a lot of the reason even like the MCU is so big is like, even though I feel like the movies are like the quality is way gone down and like just hasn't been as many good movies lately. Like I think it remains so popular because it's like it is this sort of tribe, like it is this community, this fandom that like there's like benefits to it beyond just the fact that like, hey, the last Doctor Strange movie was kind of lame and Spider-Man was overrated. Like there's so much more to it. So we can maybe talk about that a bit. Like because I think in some ways too, like it seems like the fandom is like very, not to like force it, but like religious. Like it's I get a little icky with like I feel like we're too quick to be like, they worship. It's all, everyone worships. Like I don't think like being super into like DC Comics is like one-to-one of like a religion. Like like I'm into Tolkien. I'm also a Christian. Like I don't have like two religions. Like I think you can separate that, but a lot of like the elements of fandom seem to reflect kind of religion and some of that. Like, what do you think? Do you think like what is sort of this draw of like to be like go deep into this like community of fans?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe at one level it's really the desire to like be involved with something like bigger than yourselves, and that's such a like cliche maybe, but like I think because that's an innate desire probably in every human, I think it just manifests differently. And so I think for some people it means going hard into Marvel or DC or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, or whatever, and there's different levels to that. And so I think at the one level, it's just, I think it fulfills a need in everyone, or it attempts to fulfill a need in everyone, to sort of be involved with something that's like, it's bigger than yourself. It's kind of like a club. There's sort of in the know, and you sort of have this special knowledge that maybe the regular plebes don't have, because like you've taken the time to like read everything there is about this specific superhero or comic or whatever. And so I think it just kind of, it fits nicely in that, I think, void maybe in people. But I think the other side of that would just be that some people can maybe go too far down that rabbit hole, and other people maybe just kind of stay around the surface. And I'm certainly, at least in that respect, I've never been one that just kind of goes all in with a lot of the like superhero movies or comics or anything like that. But I have other probably just as diligently researched hobbies that are far more obscure, that you can still be involved with. And so I kind of see it as it can be a religion, but in some ways it can just be a hobby. Yeah, well, and I think even just like in some ways like it reflects both like the best and worst of like religion. Like you do have like the community aspect and like the I was thinking even just like Genesis, like the Lord God said it's not good for man to be alone. Obviously, totally different context of what God talking about like male and female and marriage and stuff. But just this idea that like on your own, like we weren't created to live. Like there's something missing when you're kind of living life on your own, and like that's why I even think like you see
a lot of like the alarmist numbers of like younger generations like leaving the church, and at least to me, I see like fandoms and stuff like as like an encouraging sign that like a lot of what the church and like religion is meant for, like the sort of this community, a lot of it, what it can like deliver, you can see is still a desire of people.
Yeah.
Obviously, committing to church is a little different than like watching Marvel movies. Like they are different, but just this desire that I get, there's something almost unsatisfying about like being really into something, but then like having no one to like share it with or like talk about it with, or like like even like an introvert like me, when these trailers drop, like I want to go look online and see like, so what are people thinking, like what are we, let's all be excited about this thing. And so you see some of those like, hey, there is very much like still this desire to like be in community, but like you said, you also got like the negative side of it, of like the like the true believers and like the almost like the real fundamentalist tendency.
Again, there's that desire for orthodoxy, I think, in anything, and even just like with kind of going back to the whole Quidditch / Quadball thing. It's like there are always going to be those who are just like, we have to have an orthodoxy, and like this is what it is. And so I think that desire, and you see that in obviously in religion, it's like, no, this is the way that we do religion. You can't deviate from that. And there's always like, it's just kind of a mirror image of that with some of these fandoms as well.
Yeah, and even it's like the cross fandom like tension of like like Marvel and DC, or like Star Trek and Star Wars, like now even like the new kind of Game of Thrones spinoff show airs like the week before the Lord of the Rings one, and it's sort of like this tension,
head to head.
Like there's that natural desire to like be a part of a tribe, and like but then also like be like, this is that competitive, like we're not all in this together, like we need to win, like so I don't know, I feel like fandoms are kind of this like case study, like where you can just not in like a trivial sense, but like you can see a lot of the same things that drive us with religion, and like the way we act within religion, and like what draws us to it, and you can see that kind of happening in pop culture, and just sort of not even just pop culture, I think even just other kind of hobbies and whatever you're kind of into, we sort of are driven the same way to like find a community, kind of establish what's acceptable, like kind of have order to it, like. So I think I know it's sort of the popular way to like pit like fandoms and stuff like against religion, and like they're the enemy, and like these kids need to stop, if they were as excited about church and Sunday morning worship as they were about Comic-Con, then America would be in a better place. Like there's sort of that tendency, and again I get some of that, but
says the guy who probably is as excited about his college football team.
We need it, and then as long as we got to rush home from church to watch my football team play, and so there, I think across the board there is sort of those tendencies, but at least to me it shows that like a lot of, and even if you read like Acts and stuff, like when the church started, like I think so much of what made that movement explode was that it was satisfying these same desires of like we can all, regardless of who you are, male, female, slave, free, Greek, Gentile, like we all come together and we're all part of something that's bigger than us, and kind of find our place and kind of have a purpose. And that's sort of like the same desires. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. Like fandoms and stuff. This seems like so much of this, the media and the entertainment, this is driven for for better or worse. There's this sort of driven by fandoms, and just not as many of these sort of like independent or kind of isolated, like even like Note for Jordan Peele. Don't get a whole lot of movies like that or entertainment. So let us know if you guys see anything in fandom, some of those kind of religious tendencies, and maybe any ways that fandom kind of helps us understand more of what's going on in religion. But final thoughts, any final thoughts for you, or just things going on?
No, I don't think I have anything this week.
Yeah, well, I encourage you guys to check out, if you haven't done so, our website, thecollision.org. We're not just video, we're not just audio. You can also read the words that we write. I just had an article that dropped a couple days ago, kind of looking at Chris Pratt. He did that, which we talked about the last live stream we did. He did that article or interview on Men's Health. I just thought it was interesting. Thought I'd just sort of walk through some of that, and didn't just have like one point, but just, hey, what can we learn from what's going on? Again, we have a lot of movie reviews and stuff on our channel, both YouTube and our website, so I encourage you to check that out. I know we're both excited for this studio.
Yeah, we're very excited about this.
We got a lot of things we're going to be doing with the studio, new videos and stuff, and kind of gearing up for hopefully having a lot of momentum here at the end of the year. So we'd love to have you guys be a part of that. So if you're watching for the first time, like our page, subscribe to our channel, and kind of join with whatever, we'd love to have you be a collider. And again, encourage you, join us next week. We are back now after a couple of weeks off, back into our weekly rhythm every Tuesday at noon. So we'd love to have you join us, have these conversations with us. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe and continue to collide with your world for Christ.